Many of the locations in Dracula are taken from sources quite close to home for Bram Stoker. For someone who's Irish or one of the other areas close to England that was subsumed into the British Empire in the past, this is a strange position to be in, to be someone who has lost out to the English and yet is now part of this empire that's taking over other countries. Much of what we see in Dracula is part of Britain displaced onto another part of the world, so that the internal conflicts that come with someone who's won the war are made more exotic and a little less threatening. Romanian folklore does not always have vampires as we see them today. There are versions of them that are essentially metaphors for the grieving process, the way we deal with the loss of a loved one. So someone would die, and one of the classic methods for someone to become a vampire would be for someone to commit suicide. Then that person would be buried, and the stories would have the person coming back and trying to resume his or her previous life. Apart from that, there are other versions of vampire stories in which the one that comes back is not merely an animated corpse that eventually decays and passes on, much like a ghost would. There are versions of vampires, much more common today, that are essentially ageless. This might be something that comes about when you use the foundation for your vampire myth that relies on a political figure, someone who represents not merely a person, but a country or an institution that does not age and does not have to die. This means that Stoker's story, when it's based on the historical Vlad the Impaler, someone who is not merely a person, but a prince and a country embodied in a single figure, becomes a story of invasion and political struggle. And the Stoker vampire, Dracula, has left his stamp on what we consider to be the default characteristics of the vampire today, which I would argue are largely political.